Hello, and Kate here for the first in a series of interviews for womankind. So a warm welcome to Cyclical Living Unwrapped. Yay! And we're going to explore the gifts and challenges of cyclical life with experts in the field of menstruation, perimenopause, and cyclical living. And today, my first and very special guest is Coni Longden-Jefferson, and she's a writer, a host, and content creator, specialising in all things reproductive health, which is just perfect. And Coni works with brands including Holland and Barrett, Parla. I don't know how to say that. Myoovi, is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that right? What do they do?
Period pain, TENS machine.
So
period pain relief.
Right, okay.
Amazing.
I'll give them a special plug.
Yeah. I can pay you for that.
Also marvelous, I have to say. Elvie and Mira, to help open up conversations about period health and fertility. So my first question for you, Coni, is what is your summer superpower?
So I thought about this, and I feel like there's two-pronged answer to this. So one, I think being a content creator and a host, when I can get my gigs to land in my summer, it is so perfect, because I feel I'm always quite confident at public speaking, but there's just something hits different when I'm coming up to ovulation. I'm in that place. I just feel like my words can get all out of my head and out of my mouth in the order that I want them in. And I feel confident, and I feel, just happy to be in front of camera or on stage. So I love it when my work aligns in that way. And actually having that knowledge of my cycle means that as a freelancer, I can try and sort of work my work around my cycle. And I do often try and do my kind of more on camera showing up stuff around my summer, because I really feel that. And my spring as well a little bit, but as I come into summer, really feel that a lot. But then I also, as I was saying to you, I'm trying to conceive at the moment. So summer has become really summery. It's really like, all of those hormones and those feelings that you always have when you're living cyclically, but you sort of like, you clock them, and maybe you've got time to spend that time with your partner, or maybe you don't. You kind of have to at this time, because it's your fertile window as well. So that's been really interesting, like leaning into that quite primal urge to have sex, and actually kind of go, well, I've got to make time for it. And I've kind of, and that's been really cool to be aligned with my summer in that way. And actually, rather than going like, I really feel like, that, but I'm really busy and I've got this on, I actually have to lean into it. So I kind of feel like on the work side, it's showing up online, it's showing up in places, but my personal life currently really leaning into that pleasure and horniness, for want of a better word, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, summer has a biological purpose.
Yeah.
It's not all about showing up on Instagram, amazingly.
No. Yeah, that's not what we were doing back in the day.
And tell me, what trips you up in summer?
I think doing too much sometimes. I think, like, you get these bursts of energies and these bursts of wanting to be visible or wanting to be out there. And sometimes, especially when, my ovulation hits and those, your estrogen sort of goes, and you're like, you can get a real vulnerability hangover, or even just a tired, a sort of social battery hangover, if I've just kind of gone full pelt during my spring and summer. So I kind of feel like, I guess that's going into autumn territory, but I think I get tripped up by feeling like I can do anything. I can do it all. I can take it all on. And then that trips me up as summer sort of comes to an end. And I think, shouldn't have gone that hard necessarily.
And when you do have that little trip, what supports you in your autumn? What helps to hold you when you're?
I mean, I really, totally. And I feel like I'm in my autumn right now. Mm-hmm. And I actually love it. That like early luteal phase. I feel that urge. I kind of feel that urge to batten down the hatches comes. I can feel that coming, but it's not a sort of. I still feel really capable. And actually it's a time that I like to organize and take control of things. This is, a time when, Sunday I was there until 9 o'clock at night in the kitchen, batch cooking for the week. And I was like, this is big autumn energy. I was like, I'm like, do you know what I mean? I just feel the need to organize, and it makes me feel so calm and grounded. To sort of quieten down a little bit, but still be taking control, still being active. That's definitely what I really notice when I come into my autumn.
Is that for people whose cycles are irregular or who don't cycle? That desire to organize and to sort things can be a real tell for autumn, can't it? I know when I'm starting to chuck things out of cupboards, I'm like, oh,
totally.
Hello.
Yeah. I just downloaded an app to sell clothes, and I was like, I'm going to get it all out of the wardrobe, and I want to clean it all down, and it's just like, oh yes, and like you said, I think it's those things that I think autumn gets a bad press, because people go like, oh, autumn, oh, that's all about PMS and it's all about, and I'm like, no, it's such a wonderful phase of your cycle if you can sort of learn to recognize the superpowers of it and give yourself what you need.
If you can be resourced and if you are not knackered.
Yes. Which does come. I always feel in this sort of, as like after ovulation, that autumn, I feel like I'm, what's the phrase? I feel like I'm like doing all my stuff now, because I'm like, next week I'm not going to want to do anything. So it's like, right, let's do the batch cooking, let's do the organization, let's get on top of work, because as I sort of come to the end of my autumn and into my winter, I don't want to do any of that stuff. So I feel like it's like a gift to future Coni to get organized in that early autumn phase for me.
I'm curious. I don't know how close are you to perimenopause? Are you looking at? Have you got your binoculars out and you staring at the?
Yeah, I mean, I think
so.
I'm in my early 30s, so it's. But I think being in this space, I have so many conversations around perimenopause. And menopause, and I feel really privileged to be part of those conversations slightly earlier in my journey. I mean, like I said, trying to conceive at the moment, so it's this interesting thing where I'm trying to conceive, but then I also know that in a few years' time I could be entering perimenopause, and that wouldn't be super early necessarily. That would just be like the start of that progression. So it feels, I don't think many people think about that. So I feel like your 30s is a really interesting time, because you're sort of, if you are trying to have a baby, then there's a big kind of life change happening in that decade. You can start your 30s maybe, or people have children at different times, but start 30s not even thinking about that. Then you can go through a fertility journey and then potentially end up in perimenopause by the end. It's amazing.
That was me.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, I guess I'm obviously trying to have a baby, so I'm really hoping it's not anytime soon. But I'm also like, people like yourself, it's just so wonderful, because I think you just take the fear out of it when it does come. So I look at it fondly. I'm like, oh, that'll come at some point. Hopefully not right
and
now.
I think that what you were saying about welcoming your autumn and identifying superpowers and what soothes you,
yes,
that is like the best perimenopausal training.
Wow, that's really interesting.
You'll be fine. Well, they're both autumnal phases.
Of course. And that's kind of how, and I think life feels like that a little bit, doesn't it? Now, like right now, I feel like I'm in the summer of life, right? I'm like working really hard on my career and things going well. I'm trying to have a baby, I'm buying my house and do that. And it's like, you're kind of building up. And then it's like, yeah.
Like, can I just have a lie down? I can't.
I know,
but all those things at once.
I know. I'm in the fast lane of life right now, which I think many women my age probably recognize. But like I said, I feel like I'm doing stuff for future Coni so she can have a bit more of a relaxed time.
So beautifully segueing into my next question, what does rest look like for you?
I think there's the biggest things for me that are restful, and one is disconnecting from technology, my phone. Even if I leave my phone in my basement, my kitchen in the basement, and come upstairs, it's like just having that distance, a couple of floors between it. It's like I can feel my nervous system come down. And I was talking to someone else about this the other day, and I just thought, going for a walk without your phone, it's just so nice. And it's something we so rarely do, because I mean, my phone's my wallet, basically. I don't even have cards ever anymore. So at that time when you don't need it, because if you don't need your phone, like you're with the people you need to be with, or everything's sort of okay and no one's expecting anything from you, and it just is bliss. And so
now I'm going to really press you here. Is that really the truth? What are your real boundaries on
I don't mean I'm not saying I do it often, but I'm just saying when I do, it feels really, really good.
We are all addicted and it's really hard, and that's how you earn a living.
Exactly, that's my work. So that's what I mean. I should, and hopefully, will get into better habits with it. But that's why I almost feel, which is sad, like a luxury to go out, because it's like, oh God, like no one needs me for the next couple of hours. It's just like this freeing thing. I think the thing is about phones, I think there's a lot about social media and our scrolling and all that sort of stuff, which we all know is not good for us. But it's also that feeling of just being so accessible all the time to people. And I feel like, especially when I'm in my winter, I don't want to be accessible to anybody. So it is so nice just going, do you know what? Just going to put that away for a few hours. Nothing is that important that anyone needs me. And then I can get on with doing what I'm doing. And then the other thing is I live by the sea. I live in Brighton. So spending time by the ocean is just so calming. And if I can spend time with the ocean without my phone, that's like double whammy. That's when I'm like really feel peaceful. And so I try and get down to the sea as much as I can. There's a lovely yoga studio down at the sea, which I started going to. So starting your day or ending your day with a yoga class and then just sitting and looking at the sea is heaven. It's really, really lovely. And again, I can just sort of feel the cortisol like draining away.
And I'm interested that I asked you about rest, and just to be really explicit to people listening, neither of Coni's answers were about lying down and sleeping.
Which is interesting because I'm not very good at resting. So I have active rest.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I think you are evidently excellent at rest. Otherwise you wouldn't have shown up here. I think that rest looks different for different people.
I think what I'm not great at, which I would like to work on, is that surrender. I think that I have even when I'm resting, I sort of feel the need to be doing something, if that makes sense. Now, sometimes that can be wonderful, going to yoga class or going for a walk is still rest. But I think that there is something inside me that sometimes when I'm really in my winter and you just have to go, do you know what? Nothing's getting done today. I'm just going to stop and surrender. I'm not very good at that.
Now, I think, this, you can tell me to bugger off if you like, but it's just coming, and I used to work with pregnancy and I haven't for years, but it's come into my mind that this quality of surrender in the broadest sense is absolutely intrinsic to conception.
100%. 100%. And it's something that I'm having to acknowledge about myself, that I find that quite difficult, and sort of try to surrender, which sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely,
it's not something you can ace or do.
No, exactly. It's not a test. It's not a job interview. Exactly. 100. I couldn't agree with you more. You've sort of like gone into my mind there.
So how are you planning on doing that?
That's a really good question, and one I haven't figured out yet. And working in this space for years is a blessing and a curse as well, because you're sort of empowered with so much knowledge, and I've got wonderful friends who work in this space that if I've got any question, I can just call them up. And so I feel so grateful for that. But also it's really hard to switch off, because also my work, right? So I could be like, let's just see how it goes, let's surrender, and then I like go into work. So it's something that I am working on and haven't figured out yet. Any advice? Welcome.
Yeah, I think it takes us by surprise sometimes, and sometimes we need to be I'm speaking from my own personal experience, we need to be undone somewhat.
Yes
And then the surrender comes in.
Yeah totally.
Returning spring. What's that smell in the air?
The best.
Something sprightly.
Oh,
What are the challenges and joys of your spring, Coni?
I love my spring, and especially when you're on a fertility journey, there's something about the spring that feels really good, because it is that time when you sort of don't think about it, because you've got your summer, you're around ovulation, obviously, that you think about that, then you're in your autumn, which is sort of this 2-week wait period, which can be quite anxiety inducing. Then you've got your bleed, which is a release, but obviously comes with some disappointment. So kind of got all these different phases are quite it's quite hard to be undone and be surrendered. And then spring, I just feel like really in my body and really happy and really carefree, I would say. And I just love spring. It's when I'm like, I feel like optimistic about everything, and find a lot of pleasure in spring, and a lot of joy in simple things, and a bit carefree, and just sort of, let's just do that, a bit spontaneous. I really, really enjoy it.
I'm curious, when does your spring start? Are you still bleeding at that point, or is it after you?
I would say I'm quite lucky with my bleed, in terms of I have quite a pleasant experience with my bleed. So I would say probably my bleed's only 3-4 days. And I would say probably by the end of day 2, I'm springing up pretty, still, the energy is still rising. But in terms of my feelings, and to be honest, even sometimes as soon as the bleed comes, like I can just feel this release and feel a shift, and sort of energetically, and how I perceive things. But I listen to my body, have a bit of rest day 1 and day 2, and then day 3 I'm sort of ready to get back out in the world, and it's a beautiful time. But in terms of challenges, and I've really learned this about myself through cyclical, sort of through trying to live more cyclically, is my loneliness can get really bad in my spring, because I want to be doing stuff. So in a lot of my cycle, I'm really I enjoy my own company. I work for myself, and I'm quite an introverted extrovert, if that makes sense. Because I don't think anyone would watch this and think I'm an introverted person, but energy wise, I really like being on my own. But in my spring, I don't as much. And if I've not made plans, I can suddenly catch myself feeling like left out of things, or I get that fear of missing out.
Do you think that's a teenage thing? Do you think that's a sort of pattern that was set up when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think my therapist would definitely say that's to do with my experience. So there's deeper things. I'm not just blaming my hormones for that. There's obviously deeper things at play, but I notice it is more intense during that time, because I actually quite want to be doing things. Whereas in the second half of my cycle, I don't really care. I'm like, do you know what? I don't even want to go to that. I just want to stay home. So I really notice that. So it's something that I'll look at my diary, and if I've got like no socializing, or in that week, I'll be like, maybe you should just ask that friend if they want to go for a coffee, because otherwise you'll be sat at home twiddling your thumbs, and suddenly you'll get this wave of like, I'm not doing anything with my life. No one wants to hang out with me, and it's like,
that's beautiful. That's the sign of a beautiful caring inner mothering going on there. Looking after yourself in that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point of cyclical living, right? Because if you, likewise, if I say yes to things in the second half of my cycle, I can suddenly find myself being really burnt out, and I didn't want to do those things. I don't enjoy those things. And I think that is a really fantastic benefit of learning about your cycle, and then being able to, if you can, implement it into how you schedule your month or your life. And it's great.
Well, Coni, you've been so generous with your experience. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I'm like so honoured.
It's thrilling. I'm just gripped. But I'd love to hear more about where people can find you, and what your latest offerings are, and your work. And where do we get in touch with you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Coni LJ. So I've been a bit quiet on there recently, but generally I just share fun and interesting things about period health. And I'm not a practitioner like yourself, Kate, and there's some of that, but I'm a real fangirl basically of cyclical living. So I share from the experience of, like, I'm not an expert, but I'm just a woman doing it and loving it. I'm also the co-founder of a period underwear brand. So when you're in your inner winter and you need something cozy. Nixie Body is my period underwear brand. And then, yeah, and if someone's watching this and they have a brand, I love collaborating with businesses who are in this space. So I do lots of work, as you said, in this lovely introduction, Kate, in the fertility and reproductive health space. I'm doing more and more in the perimenopause space as well. And I just think it is so important that we're having these conversations and we keep talking about it and we keep sharing our stories. And I love sharing mine and others through my work. So it's been a real joy to be part of this today, Kate. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Coni. And for listeners, if you're curious about your inner seasons and you're navigating perimenopause, you might enjoy our free workshop. It's on the what is it? The 4th of September. Who knows when it is? I know when it is. It's on the 4th of September at 7 p.m. UK. It's a Monday night. And if you come, you'll discover the 4 essentials to simplify your path in perimenopause. And then launching after that is our self-directed online course, Perimenopause Unwrapped. You see the theme there? We're all unwrapping. And you can find all about that at womankind.co.uk.
How exciting. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Coni.